All right, live on the phone with us this morning, it's Dutchess County Executive Marc Molinaro. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. I thought we could kick off the week here by just letting people know where we are right now. So as far as Dutchess County goes, what is the situation?
So there are two things I want to say. Right, number one, everyone, there are 8 confirmed positive cases of COVID-19 in the county, but we're telling people, and I really want to impress upon this. It is not any longer, and it shouldn't be our focus as individuals about who tests positive on a government or medical test. We have moved as a nation, and we really need leaders to move from the identifying a specific case and their place of residence to the fact that all of us will have come into contact with someone who has contracted the disease over the course of the last 3 to the next 14 weeks. So we are not in and this is both to have people understand that transmission is ongoing. You can assume hundreds of people have already contracted COVID. Some are at home dealing with it unidentified and will weather that storm. Some have already experienced it and thought it was just a cold. Some are going to contract it who are higher risk, this disease is going to put a great deal of pressure on them. So I just would offer, and I don't want to waste too much time on this, but to say that that's where we need to be. We need to move from the where is that one case to we are going to contain and mitigate, but care for those who are sick.
Well,
that really ought to be our focus.
I think that's an important point because a lot of people think, okay, well, there's only like a handful in my county. That's not really probably the case. It's probably hundreds, if not more.
We as a nation were not quick enough to start early testing. And listen, all criticism aside, it's who we are. We're just afraid. We're just a more open society in that sense. So number one, that's the reality. And the other is, I think we'll lower the sense of anxiety and tension if to some degree we're not worried necessarily about, well, does my neighbor have this, and more understanding that we're all going to come into contact with somebody who's contracted it. And how we respond to that is what defines us. And that's where we, I think, need to be at this point.
All right. At that point, I know they just announced New York City is closing all bars, nightclubs, movie theaters, gyms. Where are we on that here in Dutchess County? Are you planning on doing something similar to that here, or do you think that's necessary?
Well, New York City is a much more densely populated area. I mean, listen, a total sort of community social distancing nationwide makes sense. I will tell you, we're going to take action with Ulster and Orange. We've been discussing all weekend what the next appropriate step is. I would expect not total closure, but I would expect some greater limitations. And I hate to say this, to a fragile industry, restaurants and bars. But the truth is, you just shouldn't be out in that group setting. I mean, if you can't be seated or separated, you're likely to transmit and contract COVID-19. And keep in mind, having just said we're not tracking every individual case. If you do test positive under the CDC and the state guidance at this moment, you're quarantined for 14 days. So you should assume. I mean, we should all act as if we have it, not that we're going to catch it, and do things even in our restaurants and bars that I know it's sort of the antithesis of what you do at a bar, but you really shouldn't be hanging out on top of each other, and parties and tents and what have you. It's just not an appropriate setting until this works its way through our society. So I would expect some increased restrictions that limit that kind of activity, probably encouraging people. You really should be seated in restaurants. We're going to transition over time to more curbside and drive-in or drive-up kind of and take-out kind of settings. I don't think you should expect that today. But I do think you're going to see other communities move in that direction, and we're going to have to be there as well. Otherwise, our healthcare system is not going to be able to care for people who are sick, and that really is what's critical here. It's not only about contracting and transmitting. We cannot treat a surge of critically ill people with the healthcare system as is. Will just overwhelm hospitals and physicians, and that's how people die. And so that's really what we're focused on. Minimize that surge, minimize the unnecessary transmission. So it is going to be an inconvenience, and it's going to hurt financially, and we know this. We're watching it. We're responding to it, and hopefully this government, this federal government, this country finds ways to provide financial assistance when we're on the other end of this.
All right, so let's talk just for a minute about local hospitals, because we have some fine hospitals here in our county. We're very lucky to have such great health care. However, are they prepared for a huge spike?
Well, they're prepared for a spike. So we practice with them surge planning. They have capacity. They'll limit elective surgeries. Elective surgeries, by the way, represent about 20 to 30% at the height of the kind of work that happens in private hospitals. We have a good network. So Newvance and the Westchester Medical Network, we have in a small area, we have access to a lot of beds. They're prepared for a surge. But again, if we don't take actions as individuals and calmly and appropriately, just take actions as individuals to slow the transmission, if we don't do that, there will be too great of a surge, and our system can't handle that. But every day, Dutchess County, 24/7, the agencies that are responsible for responding to public health crisis in the state of New York, county governments are charged with that first response. We organize public health response and emergency response. We're doing it every day with the private care providers. We're working the best we can to keep people informed. But the bottom line is we all should be doing what is necessary ourselves to slow the transmission. And just sloughing it off or pretending like it doesn't exist or how dare you isn't a healthy action, because some people cannot weather this without severe medical help. And the system isn't prepared for hundreds of thousands of people to have critically ill or to be critically ill and need that kind of care.
All right. So on another note, what are you watching on Netflix?
Well, here's the other thing. I kind of joked with it. The truth is, keep doing what you do. I mean, people need assurance that when they turn on your station, you're going to start being funny.
Wait a minute. What do you mean start being funny?
Listen, do what you normally do, right? In the good old days, Mayor LaGuardia in New York City used to read the funny pages. You're that reassuring voice. Social distancing is important, right? We should not be on top of each other, but emotional distancing is not necessary. So you're a friend to a lot of people. Keep being their friends. Find new ways to keep them entertained. Do things that would make folks just keep their minds off it. Listen, this isn't going to wipe us. It's not wiping through our communities. It's an emergency that we can weather. So we've been through The Crown. We've been through Mrs. Maisel.
Mrs. Maisel's very good.
I've got a family of 4 kids. We've seen every episode of Blippi and Ryan. And
all right.
But do those things. Come on, we all can lean on each other in a metaphorical way, and we'll be fine. We'll get through it.
All right. I appreciate so much you taking the time. I know you're really busy, and I assume we'll be talking to you more as this develops and things evolve. So
please have me on as often as you think is necessary. We'll rise to this occasion, no doubt.
All right, Marc Molinaro, thanks so much.
Yeah.
You bet.